Hey guys, it's Stimwalt, and I wanted to show the new players to the game basically how to get into Legends of Ultima, how to create a new character, what you initially do as a new character, which things should you visit, go to, do when you first create. We have a lot of streamers, and we have a lot of other YouTube videos out there by the community, but I just wanted to give you something officially from us. Now we're not going to direct you into a particular build or template because we want you to sort of theory craft and figure that out yourself, but I will give you some very basic guidelines, I guess. Alright, so first we're going to go ahead and log in, and I'm going to hide this part from you guys. Okay, and now that I'm logged in, you'll notice that down here I have the direct address to Legends of Ultima. Now there's basically two different ways you can connect into our server. You can put in cluster1.shardsonline.com:5150 and hit the connect button. Or if you really want to, I don't recommend it, but if you really don't want to do that, click on the community tab, and in this long list of community servers you can find Legends of Ultima, uo4.life, our website, and you can hit enter world. So the reason that I would strongly recommend that you just directly connect is that you don't have to wait for these tabs to load. Like, you know, oh, click on this, I have to find the server. Oh no, I disconnected, what happened? You know, this won't happen to you. As soon as you log in, you just hit connect and you go right into our server. So it's about as good as you can get in terms of saving a favorite. Okay, now all I did was I clicked a new character slot, and now I can create a new character. So I'm going to create a character, and let's call him Hermes. Okay, and I will create it, and now we'll go through the steps. So I can, you know, pick the different types of hairstyles, or I'm sorry, these are faces. So I'll go with face. Let's see, I'll just stick with male A. For skin tone, I'll go for a darker skin tone. For hair, I'll go with a side undercut. With windswept, or maybe we'll go long. Yeah, that's, look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. What do you guys think? Okay, we'll go with long. Facial hair, we'll go with mutton chops. What do you? Yes, mutton chops. And then for hair, we'll go with yes, we'll go with orange or white. Okay, yeah. We'll go with this color, and then we'll hit next. So this is, you know, what you can wear, and for the most part, this is not gonna matter a ton. I mean, unless you want to RP a certain aspect in your newbie clothing. But yeah, I mean, you can change the color. You can change the color of these things, and you know, just make it really wacky, which is always fun. But again, this clothing, for the most part, people may keep, you know, just as you know, I don't know, just for fun. You might keep this as your very first newbie starting clothing. Kind of a cool thing to just keep. But vast majority of people are going to actually put on armor or leather or plate or chainmail, or maybe create their own GM tailor crafted clothing. So we'll just hit next. Now this is the part where I recommend, because this is where you're going to start choosing your skills and your stats. This is the part where I really recommend you always do choose your own path. Now, can you just do warrior, mage, archer, black? Yeah, you can, but really choose your own path is the selection you're going to want to make. And so then you're going to just dive into the UO skills. And here, for a brand new character who's never played Ultima Online, this is something that I'm personally going to recommend to you. but it's by no means a like Legends of Ultima sanctioned template. If you want to learn about the best PvE templates and PvP templates, and both me using those terms is super oversimplifying what theory crafting with templates really means. But let's say if I'm primarily geared towards fighting monsters, you know, I may do a certain build, or if I'm geared towards fighting players, I may select a certain build, and within those categories there's several builds that you can select, right? And that's where the theory crafting comes in an Ultima Online 2 game like ours. Anyway, I'm going to pick a swordsman. I'm also going to pick tactics, and this is a very classic, very classic sword and board build, and so the other one that you would obviously go with here is parry. Okay, so swords, tactics, parry, and then finally you could go with something like healing, because you need a way to keep yourself up. Now, I just wanted to show this to you quickly, but there's a very important thing to mention here. In our game, you can go to a skill trainer, and you can buy skills up to 30 points. Alright, so that's very important to know before you make your character, because whatever you select here, you're going to have the option to pump it up beyond 30. So I could set certain skills to be very high during initial creation of the character, and then just go buy books for the rest. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. And you can see here there's a lot of remaining skill points. So, you know, one thing that you could do is just do none, and since your fighting skills are going to fly up typically, you might not do your fighting skills. So your stats and your fighting skills are notorious to just raise very quickly, but there's certain skills that will not raise quickly. And one of them, and let's say for this particular character I'm going pure Dexter, or I should say pure swordboard warrior. There's one skill in particular that is just not easy to raise, and it's resisting spells. And you may not go with resist on your template, right? But what I'm trying to explain to you is that you can max out, just like in Ultima Online. I mean, when I created a new character on another server, when my main server was down, I would do 250 skills and then just grind up the rest. We would do 50 tactics and 50 archery, go to the provisioner and Minoc, buy a bunch of arrows because they were cheap, and a bow, and we would go terrorize people in the Minoc mines. But yeah, long story short, something like resisting spells, getting that at 50 as a new character, it is a good idea, especially if, you know, if I'm grinding dragons, if I'm grinding you know, liches or magical creatures, having high resist is awesome. I mean, it totally mitigates spell damage. Okay, and so this is a sword and board warrior. Another one that I might consider just immediately going to 50 with is healing. So healing is something that the higher it is, the more effective it is, not only in applying, not only in curing poison, but also in applying higher levels of, healing for more, right? So this is another skill that you might consider just putting at 50 as a sword and board warrior. Okay, so I have high resist, I have high healing. So when I immediately start the game, I'm going to be healing myself, and it's going to be fairly effective. And once I get beyond 60 and 80, then I can actually 80, I can resurrect other players. My ability to cure poison vastly increases. It even scales to things like deadly poison curing. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that you have options here when you create a new character. You don't have to fill out all 4 of these. you could just fill out 2 of them and set them to 50, like in Ultima Online. And then when you get into the game, you go to a skill trainer, and then you just buy the books for 30, up to 30 skill. And I can't tell you how much time that saves you. It's going to cost you some money, but it saves you an unbelievable amount of time, because then you can buy 30 skill points in the remaining 500 primary skill points for your template. Right? So maybe I have healing, resist, swords, tactics, anatomy, parry, you know, so on and so forth. I can buy 30 in the rest of those and not have to grind them from 0. Okay? So I got 20 points left. You know, what do I want to have 20 points in? You know, so that I don't have to immediately go out and buy it, because I may not be the richest newbie in the world. I am gonna do parry, and the reason I'm gonna do parry is parry is all about damage mitigation. If parry actually procs, and it does block it, it's very effective. So it would be a good idea just to set this to 20, and then when you're out there grinding, it'll probably, grinding the money for your skill books, you'll probably surpass 30 on it. So then there's no reason to buy a book for parry. And parry is something you're going to use immediately. As soon as you start grinding for gold, parry will be used because you'll have a shield. Okay? So this is what I would recommend. You know, some people may disagree, and that's the beauty of this game. They may disagree on which 2 you should go with for a sword and board warrior. I'm picking healing because I want to be able to heal effectively, and I'm picking resist spells so that I don't just get completely sink dumped by magical creatures out of the gate. And then parry because I just see this flying up with my shield. Okay, so I'm gonna hit next. Now here we go. We've got strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So the big thing on a dexer is the dexterity needs to be higher. It generally needs to be higher because your dexterity in Ultima Online, and also in this game, Ultima Online 2 or Legends of Ultima, it determines your swing speed. So if you have low dexterity, you don't swing very fast, and that applies to archery too. So, you know, and we get that question a lot. It's like, well, why am I swinging so low? Or why am I swinging so slow? And it's like, well, what's your dexterity at? And they go, 20, 15? It's like, well, yeah, of course, you're sluggish. So for this type of build, for a sword and board warrior, I might go something like 100 strength. I might do 100 dexterity, or I might lower it to 80. And there's reasons for that. Go into the template builds channel in Discord. But basically there's a spell called Mind Blast, which does a calculation based upon the difference between your intelligence and your strength. So some players will reduce their dexterity to 80 and increase their intelligence a little bit so they don't just get destroyed by the Mind Blast spell. But you know, you might not build your character for PvP, for a PvP mindset. You might be straight PvE, and you might do 100 strength, 100 dexterity, and 25 intelligence. And that's pretty much what I'm going to go for in this starter video. So which city do you pick? You can pick any of them, okay? I'm going to show you Britain. And the reason I'm going to show you Britain is because it's the most recognizable city for most Ultima Online players. And it might be easier just to show you certain things in Britain. But all of these cities will have similar things to offer, okay? So we'll select Britain and we'll hit enter. And here we go. Okay, we got in. And one thing you'll notice is this agreement message. Now, you should only get this once per character. It's gonna open up a web page. You just say, I agree to this. It says, thank you for playing fair, and that's it. Please do read it. You know, there's some things in there we want to make sure that people understand. So, you know, if we have to enforce a rule, they're not like, well, no one told me. It's like, no, we did. You just didn't read it. So yeah, I started here at the inn in Britain. And you know, for everybody who's been following my other videos, this is all temporary. This map is going to get switched to the UO map. But you know, for now, I think it's important that we show our players the new player experience. So this is the inn. Real quick, you'll see that you feel the warmth of a roaring campfire. Most inns are going to have these hearths, and these hearths will give you sort of a regeneration of your health, mana, and stamina. Very, very slight if you don't have camping skill. If you do have camping skill, I mean, it really increases. It's quite nice. Okay, now let's take a look at what's in the bag here. We have a guide to Britannia, and this is something you should all read. I mean, I know for some of you it's like, oh man, I gotta read, but you know, it's useful. It will tell you a lot about some interesting things like bandages. It's definitely something everyone should know about. You know, it tells you about vendors, tells you about moon gates, crafting, trainers can be found in any town. It's very simplistic, but it gives you what you need, right? Okay, and as a warrior, I'm starting off with 75 bandages. I've got a skinning knife that I can use on corpses to get leather skins and meat sometimes. I've also got 5 recall scrolls that I could use if I wanted to recall on a rune. I don't have enough mana, but stats raise pretty quickly, and I think recall requires 11 mana. And I have a bank check. They're blessed. Checks in Legends of Ultima are blessed, even though we have stealing and snooping. We decided that it was just a little bit too punishing or hardcore to allow people to steal checks, so we just decided to make those blessed. You have to put this inside of your bank and double left click it in order to turn it into gold. So I will demo that to you shortly. We'll go over to the bank. This is the gold currently. We will be changing our gold to actual gold piles from Ultima Online. We're working on those custom assets, and we'll make that switch over pretty soon. The big thing is we want to make sure that it works. We have to test it very thoroughly and make sure that there are no issues with gold. As you can imagine, if there are any issues with gold, it becomes a massive problem for everybody. Here we have a pair of scissors, and scissors are going to be used to cut down cloth into bandages, so that's super useful for a warrior. We have food, and you have to eat food. See in the lower left hand corner, you'll see that it says you are now completely full. You are simply too full to eat anymore, and all players will start off full with hunger. As hunger goes down, or as you become more hungry, I should say, this status will change from full. You know, it'll go from full to, I think, peckish, to then hungry, to then starving. And once you're starving, your stats over here are all going to decrease because you're weakened. You're in a weakened state. Hunger does not have any effect on skill gain. In Ultima Online, that's all it really did, was if you were hungry, it would affect your skill gain. And we decided, well, that doesn't really make sense, because when people are 7x GM, they have no more skills to gain, and they've maxed out their character, they can just run around starving, and that didn't feel right. You know, and again, Ultima Online didn't do everything right. So instead, we decided to make hunger have a debuff on your stats. So you have to eat. Eating keeps you at full strength, which just makes sense in a realism sense. We've also got armor rating here. So, you know, if I take this off, my clothes, you know, I've got an armor rating of, a base armor rating of 2 because I have my shield on. Take my shield off, you'll see my armor rating went to 0. So we'll put our cool clothes back on with our nice little armor, or shield, and we now have an armor of 2. You'll see my pet slots are 0 out of 5. Over here is your total stats. So I've got 75 health, 10 mana, and 20 stamina, and that's min-max. And then over here are the rates of regeneration. And so this is what I will regenerate health 0.5 per 10 seconds, 2 mana per 10 seconds, 3.6 stamina per 10 seconds. Okay, so when you put on different types of armor, it's going to affect your regeneration rates. Again, that's straight from Ultima Online. Up here is your weight. So you definitely want to keep this below 205. If you are over encumbered, then you can't do all sorts of things, just like in UO. It's going to affect your ability to do almost everything. Now you can drink potions to increase your weight so that you can run around for a short period of time, but definitely weight management is a thing in this game. People use pack horses, they use fire beetles, they use potions to give temporary increase in weight, but weight management is actually vital for this type of game, because if you don't have a weight, then you can just carry everything in the world on you, and it becomes a little silly. So here we have enchantments. Now if you get an enchantment from an enchanter, they enchant you, then you'll see your enchantment listed here. This is an end game system, and it requires a lot of expensive materials in order to get an enchantment, and it's very end game, and it's geared towards PvE. So you're not going to get an enchantment that's going to make you a god in PvP. We want to keep PvP balanced to T2A. So here's your guild. You need a guild stone. You have to place a guild stone and invite people to your guild. Yes, that's right. So it's just like in UO. You have to have a guild stone, and then you invite people to your guild. And then once you are invited, I think the /guild command works. Looks like we have factions. So you can join a faction. You visit faction leaders in towns, and you can join Order, Chaos, or Balance. And there is faction gear that is limited to players that are in a faction. There are faction stones, control points in Moonglow, Britain, and Magencia. I'm going to pronounce it wrong, sorry. Currently, the faction stone in Magencia is active. The other two are currently disabled. We're looking at some issues with that. Reputation. This is, you know, you can toggle Lady and Lord if you earn that reputation. Basically, fame and karma, just like in UO, works the same way here. The more baddies that you kill, you're going to gain fame and karma, and you can get a Lord or Lady title. And you can also become a very disreputable person and get a similar bad title, but still be considered like a Dark Lord or Evil Lord or Dread Lord. Profile, you can write, you know, whatever you want in your profile. And then here in the actual user interface, you'll see we have slots for cloak, head, chest, legs, left and right, hand or hands, yeah, and then ring, neck, ears. So what we're going for is as close as possible to Ultima Online. As you have all noticed and mentioned several times, it's really just 3 pieces: pants, tunic, and hat or helm head slot. We would love to have you be able to drill down to like the neck, the pauldrons, and the gloves, and you know, we would love to make it a perfect UO 1-to-1 match in terms of what you can equip. We would also love to be able to put clothing on top of armor as well. Those are 2 limitations that we currently have. So just simply, we get that question all the time, so I thought I would bring that up. Okay, and before we head on to the bank, just one more thing for new players I wanted to show you. Super important, not sure if many people realize it, but if you go up here to player settings, we created our own little user interface here that you can go through, and it will give you customization of your user interface. You can even watch a tutorial. You can reset your window position. This is super important sometimes when windows go off the screen and things of that nature. You can set the amount, like if I set this to 25 and I hit set, and then I do I'll go to my res counter over here, or resource counter, sorry. I can set my threshold to 25. I can show it at the top, you see, at the very top. It'll show black pearl, blood moss, garlic, mandrake root, nightshade, spider silk, sulfurous ash, what ginseng, bandages, arrows, coins, items, weight. So that's pretty amazing. And if you don't want certain things to show, you just remove it here and you see it pops in. It's nice to have this threshold because it shows me with this red that, oh, I'm below my threshold on my reagents, or I'm below my threshold on my bandages. So yeah, you can also just completely hide this if you don't want to deal with that, or you can move it to the bottom. Okay. If we go back to general, you can toggle world chat. It's like, listen, I don't really care about what other people are saying in the game. It ruins my immersion, or this person is annoying the hell out of me. And they all annoy the hell out of me. You can just completely toggle world chat. You can also toggle player whispers. If people are annoying you by whispering you, you can just say, nope, not for me. Turn it off. Or you can keep it on and then just disable the pop-up. That's another option. I've actually seen PKers whisper people right before they attack them, so that the pop-up shows up on their screen, and they have that like 1 to 2 second distraction while they're being attacked with trying to close the pop-up window. I mean, it's actually quite interesting what people will do to get a slight advantage. But we put it in player settings. You can just turn off the pop-up. When you do that, you'll just get the message over here in chat. You can show the pop-ups for server alerts. You can show news on login. You turn these on and off. And when you disable the pop-ups, they'll just go into chat instead. You can auto-open doors, one of my favorite features. You can auto-run. You can automatically stack resources. You can auto-stack reagents. You can revert everything back to defaults. So let's just quickly show. I'm just going to run at this door, and it just automatically opened. I didn't have to double left clicky. See? So I mean, these are things that I don't think many players know it even exists. Or if they do find out about it, it's like a month after they played the game. Or someone in Discord said, hey, just go to player settings. And they go, what do you mean? What's that? Oh, there's a cog up here. Oh, really? What else is up here? So this is something to mention. So we covered this. We already covered the resource counter and UI extras. So you can lock hotbar dragging. So you see how I can just drag this right now. I can lock that. I can lock my buttons. So if I was to add something in here, I can lock it. So if I accidentally drag up here, it doesn't pull it out. See? So those are handy. You can add additional hotbars. Which is great, because, I mean, you always would like extra. So you're not just limited to this one over here. I should probably demo this. Drop that in. Drop that in. Click this one. Drop that one in. Click that one. Drop that one in. Okay, now do you see how many hotbars I have? 4. Pretty cool, huh? So I can just turn them off. Like so. Character toolbar visibility, I can show that at the bottom, I can show that at the top, or I can hide it. And I'll show it at the top. So this allows you to go into your character, into your backpack, into your skills, into your title, into your map, into help. Okay? And that's nice to have. It hides up here. The font's pretty small, so that there's no real reason. And it's a good coloring too. No real reason to hide that, I don't think. Real quickly, player titles. You can have titles for secondary skills and for base skills, for combat and for other. Click show all, you can freeze titles, and you can set guild titles, and you can clear them too. Alright, real fast. Don't want to get too distracted here, but I'll move this over here temporarily. There's a lot of windows. Power words color. So if you're casting a spell, you can make the words above your head, like Calortpor or Corpor, be all these different colors. And we decided to set the colors ourselves because we noticed when when we allowed the player to pick what they wanted, they would go for a color that was not visible. And while that's clever, it's not what we would like. Combat. So combat log, this is super important. You can enable the combat log, and you can make it a small combat log or a large combat log, and you can remove the transparency on it. You can move this around. I typically will use a small combat log, and you can place it wherever you want. I usually would put it over here, just because this is where all the other text is flying by. And combat log, it's going to tell you everything that happens when you engage in combat. Pretty self-explanatory. So you can show the target's health bar when you attack it. It's kind of handy. Auto defend, basically combatants, you're automatically defending yourself, which also makes sense. You can switch off freeze on spellcast. So for example, the way this works is in default in Ultima Online, when you cast a spell, you're rooted to the ground until the spell is completely primed, and then you can run again. Some players requested, well, I would rather not be rooted. I would rather it, if I move too quickly, I just interrupt my spell. And so you're not actually going to be rooted when you uncheck freeze on spellcast. Instead, you can move freely. You just have to wait for the exact time for the primed spell to appear on your screen, and then you can move. If you move too quickly, you just simply get interrupted. So it's kind of a it's totally a preference. Some people like this. Personally, I want freeze on spellcast. For me, it's just easier. It's more classic. But anyway, there's that option. You can confirm criminal actions here, or you can remove it. If you're the type of person that you know what's going to happen in terms of UO notoriety, you don't need to be informed of it every single time you make a decision. Just disable it, but just keep in mind, if you're not being warned, then you have a chance, if you're in town, of just being guard whacked. So it's on by default for obvious reasons, but you can disable that. In other, we have a music player, which we have disabled. It used to play Ultima Online Stones. We've disabled it for now. May bring it back, but just wanted to mention that. Okay. Now, help. So I got to help by clicking help. This is a really good page. It shows you how to report bugs, page for help. It goes to the websites, the wiki, Discord chat, news. List of commands is super useful in my opinion. YouTube video, support the project, but the list of commands is really nice. So this will show you like all the different commands that you can use as a player. Definitely get used to this and use it, because these commands were created for specific reasons. And if you have specific questions about them, you can always just go out to our wiki. So one other thing to show is the settings themselves. So this is game settings. Just want to go over a couple of things here real fast. Basically, if you go to graphics, you're going to want to make sure that this is set to ultra. Hit apply, and go down to 60 FPS and also hit apply. One thing about this client, it's not super optimized yet, so if you have a really powerful video card, or even if you just have a decent video card, you're definitely going to want to cap the frames, because it will just sort of go nuts. It'll do things you don't want it to. So cap it to 60 frames per second if you have a fast card. If you don't, cap it to 30 frames per second and hit apply. You can always just mess with the graphical detail here. Obviously very low, and 30 frames per second is going to give you excellent performance. For whatever reason, the game is going to default to a certain resolution. If you want to change it, you want to make, basically, if you want to force the game to use a lower resolution, you have to go to your Windows desktop resolution, and you have to set the Windows desktop resolution to, like, let's say 1080p res, which is 1920 by 1080. And then when you launch the game and you come into graphics, you'll notice that it will automatically detect that, and that will be your resolution. But for me, I've got a powerful video card, got a really nice monitor as well, So it's going to put me at this 3620 by 2036, which is basically a low-end 4K resolution. And I'm going to set mine to Ultra because I want it to look the best it possibly can at 60 frames per second, and that's going to cap it. And if you're super familiar with like NVIDIA settings, like Inspector, you can even use different drivers for this game and get optimal frames per second. But for most players, if you have a crappy video card, go to very low, cap it at 30 frames. You know, it's going to be pretty smooth. You could even do very low, capping it at 60 frames per second. I don't even think they sell monitors anymore that are below a 60 hertz refresh rate. So very low quality, 60 frames per second, generally is going to give you optimal performance. You can also do Ultra if you have a nice video card at 60 frames per second. Do not do unlimited. It's going to do crazy things to your video card, making it run way too hot and take on loads. It really doesn't make sense for it to do. You know, there's some things in here. You can change the font size, even the chat window size. That's totally a preference thing. For audio, you know, do your sound and sound volume and your music volume. And I think I haven't pulled the latest client. I think there's actually an ambient volume as well. Click to move, I always do double default the right click movement. You can also do WASD. You can do enable click to move. Those are things I don't really like, but you see how numbers coordinate or correspond with your hotkeys, so definitely keep that in mind. So you're gonna want to bind things to these numbers, and then even within the number, like let's say I bind to 11, then I can set 11 to be like Shift F, right? So it'll handle doing that, and that's really popular for UO vets. They want to be able to have like Alt and Shift and Control plus a key. All right, So now that I've bored you all with with that, let's head on over to the bank. So I recommend all players when they first create their character, just go to the bank. Just go over to the bank. You're young, all right, so you have some protections. You know, about 24 hours, 24 in-game hours, you are protected. You know, if you die, you don't lose your stuff. You know, thieves can't steal from you. You know, I think there's also a skill limitation. So if you reach a certain skill level, you'll lose your young status. Or if you reach that 24-hour in-game mark, you'll lose your young status. And at that point, you're just basically a UO player. Anyone else, you can be killed, looted. So we wanted to give you a good amount of time to learn the game before you start experiencing what this game is and what this rule set is. So let's drop our bank check in the bank. Double left click. Boop. There we go. 3,500 gold pieces. Pretty sweet. Got our torch. I'm just going to put my recall scrolls in there. I'm going to put my scissors in here too. I technically don't have to do this because I don't lose anything from my corpse as a young. But anyway, let me just read this book real quick. This is a new player guide. I recommend you read this. It's going to go more in depth than I am. And you see it says here, you're young for 24 hours, exceed 80 points in any skill, you exceed a total of 350 skill points, you commit a criminal act. So yeah, anyway. Good to read both of these things. So now that you've sort of adjusted to the bank, you know where the bank is. You're probably wondering, well, I really would like to get a horse. So you might come out here. This is right outside the main gates of Britain. There are some back gates as well. But you might come down here and see an animal trainer. Double left click and say, I'd like to buy something. And you know, maybe you want to buy a pack beetle, or just a horse. So I might just double left click on a horse and do accept. Okay. And here is my horse. That was easy. So another thing you just noticed is I didn't have to carry the gold on me to purchase it. The vendors are smart enough to pull it from your bank. That's kind of important. So now I have a horse. You know, this game just totally changed, and that did not take long at all. I had enough funds to buy a horse immediately. And if I type balance, I'll see that my balance is $29.50. I can also do vendor buy, and it'll bring up, you know, what I can buy from this banker here. You can buy commodity deeds, vendor rental contracts, the guild stones, name change deed, pardon for stat loss, all kinds of things. You know, I can also do vendor sell. He says, you know, there's nothing you have that I want, which is not surprising. You know, and of course bank. So we have all the classic UO things. You can interact with vendors without having to double click constantly. Here is the town crier. You can double click on this guy, and you can like sort of read about all of the different news updates. That kind of can be handy, and then you can go over to patch notes and read through all the patch notes in the game. You don't have to leave the game and go to Discord to get all this stuff. Real quick, I'm going to run down here. This guy right here is carpenter, and here's the architect. If you wanted to jump out, here you can see all of the different LOA homes that are available. We will be replacing all of them, but we created this little demo so you could see the homes before you buy the blueprint, which, you know, just makes logical sense. So yeah, you know, come over to the architect, see what you're about to buy before you buy it. And you can do that. And just so you know, when we switch to the UO Classic homes, which we will be doing with the UO map, none of the LOA homes will be in our game anymore. So just keep that in mind. So here's the Tinkerer. Tinkerer is going to sell a lot of base tools that you need to do your crafting. So, you know, cooking, alchemy for mortar and pestle, cooking has a cooking pot, engraving tool, shovel for gardening, skinning knife for tailoring, I believe, tinkerer tools for tinkering, hammer for smith, hatchet for lumberjack, mining pick for mining, cartographer's pen for cartography. You know, and you interact with the blacksmith by just double clicking on the anvil. It's going to say you need the tool, which I just showed you where you can get most of the tools from the tinkerer over there. You know, you can smelt directly from there, but you need to have your mining pick, I believe, equipped, because that's your tool. Here is the carpenter's carpentry table, I should say. Again, you need the tool. So you need all those base tools, and then right up here is the alchemist. And so if you want to make potions, here's the alchemy table. Again, we'll ask for the tool. And you know, you can also buy things here. So just, again, vendor buy. It'll bring up empty bottles, different potions, and your wonderful reagents. Okay, over here, inscription table. Again, need the tool. But it's going to bring up your scrolls that you can make. You can buy blank scrolls. You can get blank scrolls from the cartographer. Generally speaking, buying from NPCs in Ultima Online is not a good idea because the prices are so high. You want to buy from player vendors. You're going to find player vendors around moon gates or right outside town. Typically, there's always going to be a vendor right outside town. You know, I could run around a little bit and show you that, but I don't want, as a young player, I don't want you guys to venture out just yet. I just wanted to explain to you that, you know, player vendors in this economy, or just the player economy is cheaper than the NPC economy by design. So you might go to the smith, you might go to the carpenter, you might go to the mage or whatever, and it's expensive. And you're like, why is it so expensive? And that's because the player market exists below the NPC market. So we want you to buy from players. Their prices are cheaper. So here is the skill trainer. Remember when I was talking to you earlier? And I'll bring up Kay real quick about, you know, setting up your template. So I've got healing. I'm just going to do a favorite on that. Let's see, healing. We've got parry, favorite on that. And then we've got resisting spells. Okay, so here I've got my favorites right there. And if I want to go a little deeper, I can do it, boop, and track it up there. Oops, that's the wrong one. I can do this and track it up there as well. You know, some players don't want this on their screen all the time, and some do. So I'm just showing you that you can put it up there if you like. Personally, I would not. Oops. There we go. Personally, I would not put it up there, but, you know, it's preference. Okay. So there we go. I've got my favorites here in the skill book itself, and then I've got it on my screen. If I want to do both, I can do both. If I want to do one or the other, if I want to do neither, you know, those are your options. So for my build, let's say I'm definitely going to do anatomy. So I'll do that for anatomy. What else? Anatomy, camping, cooking, evaluating, intelligence, healing. I already have healing, hiding, inscription, lockpicking, lumberjack, mace fighting, magery, lighting, musicianship, parry, peacemaking, probably resisting spells, stealing, swordsmanship. Here we go. Swords, tactics. Tracking is one I could do. Wrestling is another I could do. Huh. So my build currently is set up for 6. I've got anatomy, healing. Anatomy amplifies not only the damage of my swordsmanship tactics, so that the damage for my melee weapons, it will also anatomy will also help my healing, and it gives me more performant healing. So something that you could consider here is poisoning. You could add poisoning and turn yourself into sort of a deadly poison warrior. That's an option for your 7th skill. You could also do camping, and that makes a lot of sense if you're constantly grinding PvE content. Camping gives you the ability to stand near a campfire and get a buff. It also will give you a regeneration, mana, health, mana, and stamina regeneration when you're near the campfire. And the buff lasts as long as you stay within that area. If you change regions, you'll lose that buff. So camping for a 7th skill, it could totally make sense. Poisoning for a 7th skill, if you want to go like DP warrior, also would totally make sense here. You could do archery as well, since you're already going to have high dexterity. You're already going to have anatomy. Archery could be a 7th skill if you wanted to do that. You know, you could do several things for the 7th. You could do hiding if you wanted. You know, you could do detect hidden. You could do tracking. You could even do 2 separate melee skills like fencing and swordsmanship. You could just do fishing just for fun. You could do mace fighting. You know, if you wanted to go for the swords bonus in PvE, you can do lumberjack. So if you do 100 lumberjacking with I think this is right, with axes, is that right? With axes, which is technically swordsmanship, then you could get a bonus. You can get that LJ bonus, only in PvE though. It's another option. What else would you possibly do? You could do lockpicking if you wanted to just pick locks in dungeons when you're doing that content. Let's see. You could do tinkering if you wanted to have a golem pet. So you could kind of be like an interesting sword and board warrior with a golem if you did GM tinkering. You could do tracking so you know where everything is at all times, making it easier for you to find mobs and find players. You could do wrestling for increased evasion. Wrestling would give you, like, I think 15% chance to evade attacks, but it would only kick in when you don't have a weapon equipped like the sword. You could do well, no, you couldn't do peacemaking really because you need musicianship as well. So yeah. Anyway, as you can see, beauty of this game, endless options. A bunch of theory crafting. And what I'm doing is not necessarily what most people would do or even recommend, but the skill books are here, and they're 300 gold, and that's pretty cheap. So you can just decide what your template's going to be and buy 30 skill. And so I'm just going to do anatomy. Alright, I'm just going to buy that. Just want to show you how easy it is. Bam! 30 anatomy. Well, that was easy, wasn't it? And I still have some gold. So let's go down here. Swordsmanship. Buy it. Bam! 30 swordsmanship. Oh my gosh. It's almost like someone designed this. There we go. See? Bam! I mean, look at me. I'm pretty good, right? I mean, I got tactics, swords, anatomy, got parry, resist, and healing. I'm ready to go. I just need to figure out what that 7th skill is going to be, and you know, I'm ready to rock and roll. So the one thing I am missing, well, am I? I guess I'm not missing. Let's jump into the Newbie Sewers, the written sewers. It's for young players only, so you're not going to be PK'd here. And there is a token vendor. So basically when you grind the stuff in this dungeon, you'll get new player tokens. Come back to this vendor here, and you can buy stuff with the tokens. The reason that we're not dropping gold in here is because we're aware that players would farm the newbie dungeon for gold and break the economy. So yeah, we're doing tokens that can only be spent at this vendor within this dungeon. It's a young only dungeon. It will have 4 levels currently. I think it's only at 2. We wanted to redesign level 3 and level 4. So here's an Ankh. You would just double left click on it and it would resurrect you. Here is a llama. So yeah, you would just come down here and you'd start killing stuff. Looks like someone was here recently. Yep. Someone is actually using their horse to kill. Oh, it looks like they're doing a tamer build. They're using veterinary to heal their horse and probably taming as well. Kill the giant rat. So we'll just whack this giant bat here. And as you can see, it's going up pretty quick. And so I can put this over here in my hotbar, and it's set to hotkey 2. So I just hit F2 and I hit G to target myself, and I will begin healing myself. My parrying's going up, and I might back away, hit F2, and try applying my bandages again. There you go. See, it worked. Bandage myself again, and I can kind of kite. See, as I get hit, my fingers slip, so the less I get hit, the more I will heal for. It worked! Yay! And see, you know, so you can absolutely do this content. I'm not really sure why I went gray. I may have accidentally attacked somebody down here, another young player. But you'll see my parrying's already increased 1.4, so the gains here are good. My anatomy and swords is flying up. And me having 50 healing is helping me a lot here. I mean, I'm actually healing myself effectively. And having a horse is huge. So not having a horse, new players should know that they can easily buy a horse. Okay, so I'm not going to grind down here for you, but what I wanted to show you is that the new player dungeon is really designed for you. Come down here and just keep grinding, keep getting your character better, and once you lose that young status, then it's time to start adventuring out into the world and going to real graveyards and real dungeons. That's the appropriate time to really experience it. We created that dungeon for you because you're a new player. We don't want you to get immediately steamrolled. So is there anything else I want to show you? Just that we've got wandering healers here. So always check out where the wandering healers are. There's guards. Guards are definitely going to whack people if they commit crimes, especially thieves in town. If you notice there's not a lot of people in town, it's because thieves are usually in town and they'll steal from you. They can get off the perfect crime if no NPC is looking, and they're GM. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much it for now. Again, once you're done with the sewers and you lose your young status, it's time to start adventuring out. And I'll just hit M here. These are the public moon gates, so if you run to one of these moon gates, it will give you a list of all the cities that you can go to. And I might even just run over to one just so you guys know where it is. So you don't, necessarily have to have... I went the wrong way. You don't necessarily have to have magery in order to travel in our game. We have public moon gates, allow you to go wherever you would like. Are they as exact or as efficient as having runes in a rune book and casting recall? Definitely not. You can travel much easier with recall, with rune books, but the beauty about rune books is you don't necessarily have to have magery. You can just buy a rune book and fill it with scrolls. So you can definitely play as a warrior and still travel with the same benefits. But right here we have a moon gate, and so you just go into the moon gate and boom, I have a list of towns that I can go to. Alright? And you can just go, wherever you like, just follow the moon gates, and you can travel all over the world. As you go to different places, people may sell runes and rune books, you can buy them. They may sell spell books that you can buy, So yeah, I think that is my quick and dirty introduction, new player experience. What do you do? I think the first thing you do is you grind up your skills, you lose young status, and you start adventuring. You start going out, and you start going to these creepy areas like over there, and you go to player libraries, rune libraries, and you start going to different content. You go to different dungeons, you go to overworld spawns, and the community is great. They'll show you where to go, and you can take wagons outside of cities to go to graveyards. There's a lot to explore. It isn't a UO style game, so we're not just going to tell you what to do. You do have to explore. But I did want to show you this. This is where you can sell jewels. So here's the trader. You might talk to the trader, and the trader has some good stuff. You can buy bags, fishing rod, tinder boxes for camping, pouches, keys, books, printed note, food, torches, lock boxes. So anyway, I do recommend that once you've done the sewer experience, you kind of go beyond Britain and don't just stay in Britain. There's a lot more to the world to see beyond Britain, and yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.